The night Ethan's flight landed in Toronto, the city was already asleep. It was past midnight, and the airport was quieter than he remembered. The kind of quiet that wraps around you after a long time away and makes everything feel both familiar and strange. He had been gone for 2 years, 26 months, to be exact, and in all that time, he had thought about Zara every single day. He told himself he would call her from the taxi. Then he told himself he would call from the hotel. But the truth was, he was nervous. Not the way a man is nervous before a business meeting. The way a man is nervous when he is afraid that the thing he has been protecting in his heart for 2 years might not have survived the distance. Ethan carried one suitcase and a small velvet box in his jacket pocket. The ring had been sitting in that pocket for 3 weeks. He had bought it in London, at a quiet little jewelry shop off Regent Street, because that was where he had first understood, really understood, that he was going to marry Zara. Not because of any grand moment, because he had seen a woman laughing on a street corner, and she had reminded him of Zara's laugh, and the ache that followed was so sharp it surprised him. He had been 29 when he left. He was 31 now, and tired in a way that success does not fix. Zara had been 24 when Ethan left for London. She had stood at the departure gate at Pearson International with her arms folded across her chest, not because she was cold, but because she was trying very hard not to cry in front of him. Ethan had pressed his forehead to hers and said, 18 months. Maybe less. I'll be back before you know I'm gone. She had laughed at that, the way she always laughed when he said something that was both sweet and obviously untrue. You've never been gone a day in your life without me knowing, she said. And she kissed him and watched him walk through security and stood there until she could not see him anymore. 18 months became 26. In the beginning, the calls were daily, then weekly. Then, toward the end of the first year, something shifted. Not something dramatic, no argument, no betrayal, nothing she could point to and say. That was the moment. It was more like the calls began to carry weight they hadn't carried before. Ethan was busy in a way that changed him slightly. He was tired in a way that made him quieter. And Zara, who had always known how to read him, started to worry about things she could not name. She did not tell him about her mother's hospital bills. She decided that early, and she stayed with that decision. Mr. Reeves, her mother's doctor at St. Michael's, had called in October of the first year to say that Mama Iris had been diagnosed with a kidney condition that would require ongoing treatment. It was not a death sentence, but it was expensive, and it was long, and it was immediate. Zara had taken on a second job at a cleaning company that handled commercial properties, office towers, event halls, and yes, hotels. She told herself it was temporary. She told herself she would tell Ethan when it was over. But it was not over, and she did not tell him. She had her reasons, and they were not small ones. Ethan was building something important overseas, a development deal that could change his firm's future, and, by extension, theirs. She had seen how much pressure he was already carrying. She was not going to become one more thing he had to worry about from 6 time zones away. So she cleaned floors. She worked double shifts on weekends. She smiled at Mama Iris across the hospital bed and told her everything was fine. By the second year, the calls had thinned out even more, and Zara had stopped trying to understand exactly why. She just kept going. That was all she knew how to do. The Meridian Grand was the kind of hotel that Zara would never have stayed in on her own. It was in the financial district, all glass and pale marble, the kind of lobby that made you feel like you should walk more quietly. The cleaning company had assigned her there 6 months ago, and she had gotten used to it the way you get used to anything. The marble floors had particular patterns she knew by heart now. The elevator banks reflected her uniform back at her every morning. White blouse, dark trousers, the small cart with its cleaning supplies. She moved through those corridors with a kind of invisible efficiency that good cleaners develop over time, present enough to do the work, quiet enough to go unnoticed. She did not mind being unnoticed. It was easier that way. On a Thursday morning in late November, Zara arrived for the early shift at 6:30 and began her rounds on the lobby level. The hotel was not yet fully awake. A few businessmen moved through with their rolling luggage, heading toward the revolving doors, their minds already somewhere else. The front desk staff were changing shifts. The coffee station in the East Lounge was just beginning to smell like something warm. Zara was mopping the section near the main entrance when the revolving doors turned and a man came through carrying a single suitcase. She did not look up immediately. She rarely did at that hour. She was focused on a stubborn watermark near the base of one of the marble columns, working at it with the mop in slow, careful circles. "Excuse me," the man said to the front desk. "I have a reservation, Ethan Morrow." The mop stopped. Zara did not move. She was not sure for a moment that she had heard correctly, because the name was not unusual. There were other Ethan Morrows in the world. There had to be. But the voice was not something she could mistake. She turned slowly. He was standing at the desk with his back to her, signing something the front desk agent had slid across the counter. He looked taller than she remembered, or maybe she had just forgotten. His coat was the charcoal grey one he had bought the winter before he left, the one she had teased him about, because it made him look like an architect in a movie. His hair was shorter now. His shoulders carried the particular set of a person who had been traveling for many hours and was running on will alone. Zara looked down at the mop in her hands. She thought very clearly, "I cannot let him see me like this." And then, almost immediately after, what does that even mean? She had done nothing wrong. She had not betrayed him. She had not given up on him. She had only worked and cared for her mother and survived the way people survive when there is no other option. But standing there in that lobby in her uniform, with her cleaning cart beside her and the early morning light coming through the tall windows, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt ashamed, not of what she had done, of how it looked. She began to move toward the service corridor, slowly, without hurrying. If she could just reach the door before he turned around. Zara. She stopped. He had turned. He was looking at her from across the lobby, not with the expression she had feared, not pity, not confusion, not the particular flinch of a person recalibrating their expectations. He was looking at her the way he had always looked at her, like she was the thing in the room he had been looking for. "Zara," he said again, and this time it was not a question. For a moment, neither of them moved. The front desk agent glanced between them, uncertain whether to intervene. A bellhop near the elevator pretended to look at his phone. The lobby's ambient noise, the soft music, the coffee machine, the distant sound of an elevator arriving, continued undisturbed, as though the world had not just shifted sideways. Ethan crossed the lobby. He stopped a few feet from her, close enough that she could see the tiredness in his face, the kind that sleep doesn't fully fix, and the way he was looking at her like he was checking that she was real. "You work here," he said. It was not an accusation. It was not even surprise exactly. It was just him catching up to something he had not known. "I do," Zara said. Her voice was steadier than she expected. "Since about 6 months ago, I didn't know." "No," she said. "I know you didn't." He looked at the cart, at the mop she was still holding, at the uniform that she had told herself she didn't mind and had, some mornings, minded very much. He looked at all of it without flinching. "How's Mama Iris?" he asked. Zara blinked. "You knew." "Not until last month," he said. "I called your cousin Wren to ask about a surprise for you. She thought I already knew. She told me everything." He paused. "I should have asked sooner. I should have noticed. That's on me." Zara was quiet for a moment. The mop handle felt very present in her hand. She set it against the cart and looked at him. "She's doing better," she said. "The second treatment cycle went well. The doctor thinks she might be able to reduce her appointments by spring." "I'm glad," he said. And then, "I'm sorry it took me so long to come back. 2 years is a long time, I know." He looked at her steadily. "I'm not going anywhere again. Not for that long. Not without you." Zara looked away for a moment, toward the tall windows and the grey November light. She had imagined this conversation many times. Or not exactly this conversation, but some version of it. She had imagined it going many different ways. She had not imagined it happening here, in this lobby, with her in her uniform and him still carrying his suitcase. "You should check in," she said. "You look like you've been on a plane for 9 hours. 11, he said. "With a layover? Go," she said, almost smiling. "I'll be here until 2. He looked at her for a moment longer. Then he picked up his suitcase and went back to the desk. Zara finished her shift. She cleaned the lobby level, the 3rd-floor conference rooms, and 2 guest corridors. She did it the way she always did, carefully, without rushing, but her mind was somewhere else the entire time. Not scattered, just occupied. There was a low, steady feeling in her chest that she recognized after a while as the feeling of something she had been bracing against finally letting go. She changed out of her uniform in the staff room at 2 o'clock and collected her bag from her locker. She was walking toward the service exit when one of the front desk agents, a young woman named Priya, who had always been kind to Zara in the easy, natural way of people who simply are, stopped her. "There's someone waiting for you in the East Lounge," Priya said. "He asked me to tell you not to rush." Zara almost said she was tired. She was tired, but she turned and walked to the East Lounge instead. Ethan was sitting at a table near the window. He had showered and changed. Dark jeans, a simple grey sweater, and he looked more like himself than he had in the lobby that morning. There was coffee on the table and a small plate of pastries that Zara suspected he had ordered without knowing whether she would come. She sat down across from him. They talked for a long time, about London and what it had taken from him and given him, about Mama Iris and the months Zara had spent learning what it meant to be the only person in a room who knew what needed doing, about the distance that had grown between them, not from any single failure, but from the slow accumulation of small silences they had each chosen, separately, thinking they were protecting the other. "I should have told you about my mother," Zara said at one point. "You were protecting me," Ethan said. "I understand that. I just wish you hadn't had to. I didn't want you to worry. I know." He looked at her across the table. "But Zara, I want to worry about the things that matter to you. That's not a burden. That's the whole point." Zara looked down at her coffee. She had told herself, in the harder months, that love was something you protected from difficulty. You kept it separate from the parts of your life that were heavy, so it stayed light. But sitting here, she was beginning to think she had it backward. Love was not something you kept clean and separate. It was something you brought into the mess with you, and it either held or it didn't. With Ethan, it had held. She wasn't sure she'd understood until now how much. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you since London," Ethan said. He reached into the pocket of his sweater. He set a small velvet box on the table between them. Zara looked at it, then at him. "I know the timing is strange," he said, "and I know this is not how I imagined this happening. But I've been carrying this for 3 weeks, and I'm done waiting for the right moment, because I've realized the right moment is any moment you're in it." He paused. "I love you, Zara. I loved you when I left, and I loved you through every week I was gone, and I love you right now. Sitting here in this hotel where you've been working double shifts to take care of your mother and not saying a word about it to anyone." His voice was quiet and direct and completely certain. "Marry me, please." Zara looked at the box. She thought about the lobby that morning, and how she had wanted to disappear before he could see her. How grateful she was now that she hadn't. "Yes," she said. Simple as that, no hesitation. He opened the box. The ring was elegant and understated, a single stone, pale gold setting, exactly the kind of thing she would have chosen herself. He slid it onto her finger across the coffee table in the East Lounge of the Meridian Grand, while Priya at the front desk pretended very hard not to watch. Mama Iris cried when she heard. She was sitting up in her hospital bed with a cup of tea balanced on the rolling tray beside her, and when Zara walked in and held out her hand, Mama Iris set the tea down and pressed both of her own hands over her mouth. "That boy," she said finally. "That boy," Zara agreed. "He called me," Mama Iris said. "Last week. Did he tell you?" "He called to ask how I was doing. I thought maybe someone had told him, but he just said he was checking in." Zara sat on the edge of the bed. "He didn't tell me that. He also asked me," Mama Iris said with the small dignity of a woman who has been keeping a secret she is very pleased to release, "whether I thought you would say yes." "What did you tell him?" "I told him I raised a sensible daughter." Mama Iris picked up her tea again. "And then I told him yes." The wedding was set for the following September. Not a large affair. Zara had never wanted large. She wanted the people who had been there during the quiet, ordinary months. The ones who showed up without being asked and helped without needing to be thanked. She wanted her cousin Wren, who had accidentally told Ethan everything, and had apologized so many times since that Zara had finally made her stop. She wanted Mr. Reeves, Mama Iris's doctor, and the nurses on the 3rd floor who had learned Mama Iris's name and called her by it. She wanted Priya from the hotel front desk, who came to the engagement party. Ethan insisted on throwing and danced with an enthusiasm that surprised everyone. Ethan wanted a garden. Zara wanted to be close enough to the lake that she could hear water. They found a venue in the Niagara region, an old property with tall trees and a stone terrace that looked out over the escarpment. And when they stood on that terrace together, for the first time on a cold February afternoon, Zara thought, yes, this is where it happens. She had kept her job at the cleaning company until March, not because she had to. Ethan had come home to a position that paid well, and his first act upon settling back into the city had been to insist on taking over the costs of Mama Iris's treatment with a directness that had made Zara cry in the kitchen when she thought he wasn't listening. She kept the job because she wanted to finish what she had started, because walking away mid-contract felt wrong, because she had made commitments and she kept them. Her supervisor, a quiet man named Douglas, who had never once made her feel small for the work she did, said on her last day, "You were one of the best I had. Whatever you're going to next, they're lucky." She thanked him, and she meant it. There was a moment, a few weeks before the wedding, when Zara and Ethan were at Mama Iris's apartment, helping her reorganize her kitchen, and Ethan dropped an entire jar of preserved peaches and stood in the middle of the kitchen looking at the mess on the floor, with such genuine dismay that Zara and Mama Iris both started laughing at the same time. And Ethan looked up at the two of them laughing at him, and he started laughing too. And the three of them stood in that small kitchen in the east end of the city, with peaches on the floor and afternoon light coming through the window. And it was not a remarkable moment by any measure. It was just ordinary. It was just good. This, Zara thought. This is what I held on for. Not the ring. Not the hotel lobby, not the September wedding with the stone terrace and the view of the escarpment. Just this. The ordinary Tuesday afternoon, the jar on the floor, the sound of her mother laughing. She had waited for Ethan, and she had worked, and she had not said a word to him about how hard it was, and she had almost let shame turn her down a service corridor before he could see her. But love is a patient thing when both people are honest about what they are carrying, and they had gotten there. Imperfectly, and a little late, but they had gotten there. On their wedding day, when the officiant asked Ethan whether he took Zara as his wife, he said yes before the sentence was finished. And Mama Iris, in the front row in her blue dress, pressed her hands over her mouth again.